Hi there guys, it's Pip here from pipweekly.com. So today I just want to give you a special message and it's about being optimistic. So here's the thing, try to be optimistic even when things aren't working out. I was listening to a podcast by Byrne the other day, and he was talking about how it's easy to be positive when things are going well, you know, when the economy is good, when you've got a stable job, when children are behaving, when you're getting on with your partner. And it's so much harder to be optimistic and positive when those things are not working out. But here's the thing, I was also watching The Secret last night. If you've never heard of The Secret is probably the most amazing thing I've ever watched. The Secret is, of course, the law of attraction. And basically the principle is that you are like a magnet. So with your thoughts, you attract things. Now this may sound very sort of woo-woo and insane. When you listen to The Secret, you watch The Secret, it's available on YouTube, it's absolutely free. You realise that actually it's not a load of rubbish because there's quantum scientists on there talking about it. And you know, the more you look at sort of the great people of the world, you know, Edison or, you know, Einstein, you know, Martin Luther King Jr., people like that, they all knew of The Secret, and they used The Secret because they weren't born into the kind of wealth or the prosperity that they had later on in their lives. Most of them came from absolutely nothing. And so the secret is that with your thoughts you create things, and there is scientific proof of this. There's a part of your brain Tony Robbins talks about this, that basically it's like when you buy a car, or you're thinking about buying your next car, suddenly you notice that car everywhere, you are attracted to that car. Part of your brain tells you to tune into that. So when you think a certain thing or you want a certain thing, your brain makes you notice that more, and your subconscious starts working out, pretty much without your help, how to get that. So it's really important that you feel good, and one of the people on The Secret was a guy called Joe Vitale. I don't know much about him, but he seems to be quite a leading kind of person in the kind of realm of this kind of new age thinking, if you like, and he was talking about how it's so important that you feel good, because what happens when you feel good is you attract in more of the things that feel good. So how do you really start to feel good when things are not great? Well, let's just use my current situation. So at the moment I'm technically in a job, but I've got 2 weeks off because I'm a live-in carer. The last placement did not go well. The last placement ended early, and I'm kind of there going, I don't really want to commit to this. So I've got to ring somebody in a few minutes, and you know, I was looking online and I was just typed in job search, start immediately. That just came to me. It popped up in the search box. People must have been typing for it, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting, and there is a job available. I really hope they take me in and take me on, because that would solve a lot of my problems, but there's always that possibility that I might not get it. Okay, so here's the thing, if I start feeling good and start visualising that, there's more of a likelihood that that will come to me. One, because of my attitude. People pick up good vibes and bad vibes. You know, the quantum physicists on this movie were all saying that we are basically energy. You know, scientists will talk about, you know, how molecules are energy. We're all made of molecules. Molecules are just energy. So we all have a frequency, and thoughts actually have a frequency. You can hook someone up. You know, we see people with all these dots on the head, and you can wire them up, and you can actually measure the frequency and the energy capacity of a thought. And it's believed that a positive thought has about 7 times more energy, or more than that, of a negative thought. So the more you think positively, the more likely you are to attract positive things into your life. Now, of course, there is a time delay. You know, again, in The Secret, there was an excellent example. So there was an image of a guy, a short video of a guy who, a picture of an elephant on a postcard came through his door, and it showed that if he thought about, oh yeah, I want to go and see elephants immediately, and it showed this elephant turning up in his front room, and he was kind of, scooping up the poo with a dustpan and brush. So, thank goodness our thoughts don't manifest straight away. So there will be time delay when you think positively. Now this, I'd say, might sound a bit complex or a bit sort of ridiculous. There are certain forces in the world that we can't see. Gravity, for example. If you jump off a building, doesn't matter whether you're a good person or a bad person, you will go down. We don't see gravity. You can't really measure gravity. Well, you can measure gravity, obviously, with like kilopascals, but you could turn around and say, I don't believe in gravity, and it would be quite difficult in a way to prove, because it's not a physical entity. And this is the same sort of concept as well. It's like love. You can't prove or disprove love. You can see the effects. You can see people in love and being loving, but you can't actually. It's a feeling and an experience rather than a physical entity again. So this is a very sort of new age thinking. So back to the original thought, being positive. So yeah, try and be positive even when things aren't working out, because the thing is that your situation at this moment in time is just your situation, and really our lives are made up of all the choices that we have. I mean, my life at the moment is probably not on track where it needs to be, although I believe I'm at the right point that I need to be to have the revelations and the understanding that I need. But it's probably not as good as it could be, because of thoughts of what I've created and what I haven't thought about, and discovering the secret of attraction. Basically, thoughts become things, because your brain will subconsciously attract you towards those things and will make you notice the things to get you to where you need to go. Is a totally new way of thinking, and I wish we'd been taught this so much younger, because my life, I've done so many different things, but there's never been a straight path. Maybe you're the same, or maybe that you are on a straight path and then you're coming to realise that actually it's time for a change. Your inner blueprint has changed. You used to be so happy where you were. This has certainly happened to me in a job that I had, that I ended up leaving. So that is really my message for today. Try and be positive. The number one way to do this is obviously gratitude practice. Just wake up in the morning and just think about the things you're grateful for. It could be your parents, it could be your eyes, it could be that you have clothes, it could be the fresh water that you have, it could be that you have food in the cupboard even though it's not your favourite food. It could be that you do have a job even though it might not be the job that you ultimately want. It could be that you've got carpet in your home. It could be that you've got a bed to sleep in. There's people out there who don't have a bed to sleep in. It could be that you don't have a terminal illness. Maybe you do have a terminal illness and you're saying thank you for my healing, thank you for my healing. Again, on The Secret, there was a real life example of a lady. She only spoke for a couple of minutes, who had been diagnosed with breast cancer, and she said she just went about her day saying thank you for my healing, thank you for my healing. And she watched things, a lot of comedy things that would make her feel positive. And honestly, within the space of 3 months, there was a medical miracle. Within the space of 3 months, she went back to the doctors and they couldn't find the cancer. It had totally disappeared. So miracles do happen. Thoughts can hurt or heal. They say words can hurt or heal. So that's very important. The second thing is obviously visualization. Visualize what you want. If you know what you want, you are in the top 5% of people on the planet. If you take massive action on that, you're in even a smaller percentage of people who have what's called personal power. So don't forget to ask for what you want. If it's more money, ask for that. Don't use words. The universe isn't even responding to your words. It's a feeling, not desperation, but imagine yourself with the feeling of having more money, with the feeling of having prosperity, with you know, just sit down, and I know it might seem stupid in a dark and quiet room, but do that because it has been proven to work. And I know it sounds bizarre and stupid, but it really does work, and there are people out there. And if you haven't watched The Secret, I strongly recommend you do that, and I'll leave a link with you now. So that's all from me, and I'll see you next time. You take care. Bye bye now.